The SEC just responded to Judge Torres in a request that Ripple had made about some videos last week. And in this video, I'm going to tell you what the SEC responded with and how it's basically a giant middle finger to the courts and to Ripple. And it's not so much what they said, but it's how they said it. And also, I have a few other updates regarding what is going on in the case because the judge just approved a new timeline for some motions that both Ripple and the SEC are going to be submitting, and it includes some information that neither side wants each other to see. Also, in this video, I'm going to be a little bit speculative in regards to the price of Bitcoin because there's some new analysis coming out that shows Bitcoin, well, it's not going to be doing well over the next couple of months. Some of it involves the macroeconomic issues, some of it involves technical analysis and the charts. And now I'm going to tell you what is now a growing list of analysts that are saying Bitcoin is going to drop to. But have no fear, after that, there's some good news. Also, Mark Cuban came out firing against Cardano, and he was going on a little bit of a comparative tirade regarding Cardano and his new favorite cryptocurrency. And it's strangely familiar to one that Elon Musk just talked about on another podcast. Hey everyone, my name is Randy. Welcome back to the Late Night Grind. Right now on this channel, we are covering the Ripple versus the SEC case, as well as other cryptocurrency news, investment markets, and personal finance. So if any or all these topics interest you, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Join the Late Night Grind community. Also, if you just hit the bell notification icon, YouTube will send you a notification when I release a new video. And of course, if you do a couple things, I'd appreciate it. Smash the thumbs up button, watch the video all the way to the end, and of course, check out my Patreon. The link is in the description below. All right, guys, let's jump into it. So actually, the first thing I wanted to mention was John Deaton's class action lawsuit against the SEC. John Deaton, of course, is seeking to intervene in the Ripple versus the SEC case. He's been putting together a huge class action lawsuit against the SEC. Basically, what he calls is regulatory overreach and going after essentially XRP holders and essentially all the damages that the SEC has caused XRP holders over the past 2 years. That class action lawsuit has now reached 70,600 XRP and non-XRP holders inside of the US and outside of the US that have joined his class action lawsuit against the SEC. It continues to grow in number, and yet the SEC continues to try to push them away as far and as hard as they possibly can. But before I get into more of the SEC versus the Ripple case, I wanted to talk about a couple other things that were making some headline news. Number one, Mark Cuban was talking about basically some of his favorite cryptocurrencies, and he was doing a little bit of a comparison of Cardano, which is essentially turning out to be the cryptocurrency's world favorite whipping boy, versus Dogecoin, which of course is a meme coin, but has caught on due to the several people catching on and promoting it. Number one, Elon Musk, and now number two, Mark Cuban. So Mark Cuban was comparing a Dogecoin to Cardano, and even though you can't really compare them from a technical aspect because they do different things, he was doing it anyway. And in fact, he was going on a little bit of a rant saying, well, Cardano is supposed to be this amazing platform. It's been designed to host all these incredible world-changing applications, and yet for the past couple of years, it hasn't really done any of that. In fact, it was supposed to be the savior of the African financial system, and it's done nothing of the sort. Meanwhile, he's pushing Dogecoin because he says it represents more application, at least in terms of transactional applications, than something like Cardano is. And he's not the only one to be saying it. So recently, actually about 4 or 5 days ago, Elon Musk was on another podcast called the Full Send Podcast, and they asked him about the cryptocurrency world, and he didn't really have much to say, except for the fact that Dogecoin. Yeah, I like Dogecoin. It has much better throughput than other cryptocurrencies, and from a transactional perspective, it's just a much better option. So yeah, Dogecoin. And that's literally pretty much all he said about the cryptocurrency world. Of course, no mention of him selling most of his Bitcoin holdings in order to have some liquid cash to make it through, because as the numbers have came out now, Tesla has delivered its lowest number of Teslas in the last month than it has in the past several years. So not great news for Tesla coming out. But let me know in the comment section down below, Cardano or Dogecoin, or none of the above. But it did catch my attention because now you have two multi-billionaires touting Dogecoin. It's going to make you think a little. Okay, so now before I get into the Ripple versus the SEC and some of the motions, briefings, and judgments that just came down, I do want to mention the Bitcoin price action and its future price action because there's a couple of things coming up. Number one, the CPI data, which is the inflationary data, is going to be coming out this week. It's always not looking good this year, and in fact, it's probably going to be another higher number this week. Now, some of the speculation is that that number won't be quite as high as it was last month, but still anything over 9% is ridiculous. Actually, to be honest, anything over 3 or 4% is ridiculous, but this is just crazy ridiculous. So gotta watch out for those numbers. Also, we're gonna have some housing market data coming out, I believe, at the end of this week or the beginning of next week. And some speculators are now saying, yeah, it's pretty much over. The amount of mortgage applications are dropping like a rock. And in fact, in some parts of the country and in some parts of Canada, the average housing price has dropped already by over 5%. And some say this is going to drop like a rock very, very quickly. So right now, Bitcoin is at around 24,000. It's using the 200-week moving average as its support. It actually bounced off of it a few times. It is now hovering right over that, right around that 200-week moving average. Now, in terms of the short term, you're going to have to look at what some of these macro issues are going to look at, because some people think that these bad CPI numbers, as they always affect Bitcoin and the rest of the markets, Bitcoin always drops by anywhere from $500 to $1,000 and then rebounds that same day. Some of the speculation is that this time around it could be different, meaning if Bitcoin drops, say, $1,000 when bad CPI numbers come out, it may not recover and it may just continue to head lower, especially since it's in a downward trend after bumping up against a major trend resistance line last week. The next leg down will be somewhere around the 19,500 range, and that's of course if it doesn't drop any lower than that. If it breaks out of that lower resistance, you could be seeing a $17,000 or lower Bitcoin. Now, I wanted to talk about the growing number of analysts that are saying, not necessarily this month and not necessarily next month, but probably by the end of the year, possibly into next year. They're saying anywhere from November of this year into February or even March of next year is when Bitcoin is going to see its actual bottom. There are now several analysts that are saying a $10,000 to $12,000 or $10,000 to $15,000 Bitcoin is now highly likely. And the reason that they're suspecting this is because A, some of the charts point in that direction as long as the macros continue, which is high inflation numbers, especially if the Fed in the United States continue to raise rates. And one of the biggest consensus is that there is going to be a major fear event. That fear event, well, inflation numbers continue to come in high, and around November and December, if they are still at around 4 or 5%, it is in all likelihood that the Fed will stop raising rates just because they can't continue without causing catastrophic damage to the economy. And what they're going to be doing is throwing their hands up and saying, sorry, we already did everything. That is when people will take cash out of the markets at a fast and furious pace. Everything will be a bloodbath. Cryptocurrency and Bitcoin will be no different, and that is when you could see a wick down to $10,000. Several of them said they already have buy orders in at $10,000. One of them said he has buy orders in at $7,500. So, and by the way, one of those analysts was calling for a sub 20K Bitcoin when Bitcoin was up at 58,000. So there's some food for thought. And he was then laughed at for about 2 months until they realized he might be onto something. But have no fear, because right after that, there could be a 3 to a 6 month period where it basically just chops along, bounces along the bottom, goes a little bit up, goes a little bit down, really does nothing, basically goes sideways. But then as things start to turn around, Elon Musk predicting about a 12 to 18 month recession, cash being flooded back into the market, possibly by the Fed, or being that there's going to be a bunch of cash on the sidelines waiting to make a move, that Bitcoin and the crypto markets are going to front run the rest of the markets. And there's several analysis that say they're not alone. Now, why would they be so bullish after a catastrophic drop and several months worth of bouncing along the bottom? Well, because BlackRock has just entered the chat. Now, I mentioned this in my last video, and I'm going to cover this further in other videos, but this entering the Bitcoin space with its partnership with Coinbase is huge, because not only is there a lot of cash, US dollars, in reserve managed by BlackRock, most of their large clients are massive institutions, including world governments. All right, so now let's talk about the Ripple versus the SEC case. And this is really just a matter of the SEC being extremely rude to the courts and to the SEC. At least that's according to some analysis. James K. Filan on Twitter, who basically said what the SEC just did is a waste of the court's time. So let's back up. Ripple submitted a letter to the judge saying, we have 7 videos. We have a bunch of videos of SEC chairman and former chairmen making certain statements. We would like these videos authenticated so we can enter them into the case. Well, the SEC said, and now that Ripple has sent their official motion to the judge for a decision on this, the SEC sent a 1-sentence answer to what Ripple was requesting. It said the SEC has no position on what Ripple wants to do in reopening fact discovery in this case. That took them 5 days to come up with. So James Filan says, not only is this basically disrespectful to the judicial system by waiting 5 days for a 1-sentence answer, that answer was basically just a waste of the court's time, because what they did was completely misconstrue what Ripple had requested from the courts, which was to get these videos authenticated, and these videos were part of Ripple's RFAs, which were sent during discovery before the close of discovery, which means it's permissible for Ripple to do this. The SEC is basically contending that, yeah, Ripple wanting these videos authenticated is going to be reopening Discover, which it isn't. But the SEC, in their one-sentence, very thoughtful answer, said that it is. I can't wait to see the judge's response to this. Maybe she'll just write back in a one-sentence answer and say, the defendant's motion is granted and fact discovery is not reopened. So right along with that, the judge also decided on a motion which both Ripple and the SEC had sent a letter to the judge saying, we want our expert witness testimony from either sides basically to be hidden from the other side while we submit them to the court. So basically what James Filan said on Twitter is that all these are going to remain under seal until Judge Torres takes a look at them and can make sense of them. So until then, both Ripple and SEC won't get to see each other's expert witness information. Alright guys, I want to thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end, for smashing that thumbs up button, and as always, I'll see you guys on the next video.